Hi, today we're going to learn how to incorporate statistics into our writing. Statistics are great because they give a scope. They let your audience know how large your topic is, how it's impacted people numerically. So what we first want to do is we want to open the graphic organizer provided. We want to go to File, Make a Copy, and we want to make our own editable version of this graphic organizer. So pause to do so and unpause when you're done. Next, we want to fill out this first box. So the first box asks you to find and consider what statistic might enhance your paper overall in a broad sense. And then the remainder of the box asks you, okay, what statistic might enhance point A specifically? What might enhance point B and point C? So if my topic was on social media, I might want to paint the broad picture. Okay, how many people are even using social media? So I might ask, how many teenagers are currently using social media apps such as Instagram and Snapchat? I might look that up, and that might be a nice statistic overall for my paper's introduction. The next one, point A of my thesis statement, I might talk about social media addiction. And so this question surrounds social media addiction. The next one, point B of my thesis statement, might be people's feelings of self-worth after using social media apps. And so I might ask what statistics suggest regarding feelings of self-worth that teens are reporting. I have personally researched this when I was helping a student, and I've seen both sides. I've seen some statistics that say, oh, wow, social media improves students' feelings of self worth. And so you might want to choose that route. There might be statistics that you find in other articles that say that they lower self worth. So you can either choose both and compare contrast those two findings, or you can say, okay, my paper is going to say that it's beneficial. Social media apps are beneficial, and you can just use the one that says that it's improving self-worth. And or maybe you're doing the opposite, you're saying it lowers self-worth, and so you would just use that other article and that other statistic. The final one, point C, it's going to enhance point C. So at this point in time, you might not have your thesis statement developed, but you might want to put placeholders. Maybe you want specific statistics that you can think of for your topic, and just kind of put them as possibilities for point A, point B, and point C. So we do want you to pause at this time, fill out this box, and unpause when you're done. The next thing we want you to do is we want you to find statistics. My favorite way to find statistics is by going to Google Images. And so I go to Google Images, I type in my topic. I'm going to type in social media self-esteem, and I hit enter. As you can see with Google Images, we get a bunch of pictures. Watch what happens when I type in the term statistics now. Then I get a bunch of graphs and charts that are really helpful. So I look around, I find one that I like, and I decide maybe I like this one. Then what I would do is I would go out and I would link to this article. Maybe the whole article is useful beyond the statistics, and I want to use it as a real quality source in my paper. But maybe I do only want to use a chart and graph from it. Either way, I have to cite the source that it directs me to. So at this point in the graphic organizer, I place where I found the statistic. I say what part of my outline it supports. For me, it supports point B because it deals with self-esteem. And then what we do is we give all of the information on the site right here at this part of the graphic organizer, the hyperlink, the parenthetical citation that you're going to need to use for your writing so that you properly cite the information. Remember, if there's an author, it's going to be the author's last name in the parentheses. If there is no author, it's going to be the article title stated, meaning shortened within quotation marks within the parentheses. You do the title, copyright date, the date of the statistic that it was recorded as, the author and organization, and their qualifications. So go ahead, fill this out, and unpause when you are done. Next, we need to take the article and we need to actually copy and paste the statistic. So you might be copying and pasting the graph or chart into this box. That is okay. If you're pasting from a sentence and you're doing it directly, quoting it by copying and pasting, you want to put it in quotation marks so you don't accidentally plagiarize later. You want it, if you've done word for word, you want to include it in quotation marks so that you properly cite it. Then what you might want to do is you go over to this box right here, and you have to consider, what does this number look like? If this number is a little bit more like this number, where it's a large number that's difficult for your audience to digest, you might need to modify that statistic and round it. So right here we have 2.2 million, which is much more digestible than this number for your readers. So if you need to take a statistic and modify it, do so in this box. So go ahead and pause if you need to, unpause when you're done. This box asks you to convert it into percentage form. Sometimes percentages give different views. And a great example of this is 1.1 million people entered the gates of Auschwitz during World War II. Or I'm sorry, 1.3 million people entered. Only and 1.1 of them died. And so what you need to do is, if we say 1.1 million people died in Auschwitz, that's not very meaningful for your audience. But when we find out that around 90% of that group walked in and never walked out, that's so much more meaningful. So a percentage can give your audience a different viewpoint. You might want to convert your statistic to percentage form. It might be that you can do the math yourself, or maybe you look up an article that gives it in percentage form. If you do utilize a different article, then what you have to remember is that now you need to include a new citation for that information. So just be aware of that. Comparison contrast. Now what you want to do is you want to give your reader a point of reference. Maybe locally they know what the size of something is, and you can compare it to a size of something you're talking about, to something that they're familiar with. Maybe a population might look different. You can compare populations. One example is our local population was impacted by Hurricane Sandy. We saw a lot of devastation. Anyone old enough to remember that might be shocked to find out that Hurricane Katrina was, in fact, much more damaging. And so, if we're learning about Hurricane Katrina, for anyone who can remember Hurricane Sandy, it might be nice to say, in comparison to Hurricane Sandy, which impacted this many people, Hurricane Katrina impacted that many people. And people who remember that clearly, it would be so much more meaningful to have that point of reference. So go ahead and pause to do a comparison contrast and unpause when you're done. The next thing we need to do is talk about the importance of the statistic. Why is it important? What does it mean to people? What is the meaning? Don't let a number just stand on its own. You need to say, is this a good number? Is this a bad number? Is this a growing concern? Is this positive? Are good things happening? And then finally, in this box, you want to predict. Do you anticipate growth, reduction? Is this good? Is this bad? So go ahead and pause to fill out these two boxes and unpause when you're done. Now, finally, to put it together, you want to, maybe your sentence number one is the importance of the statistic. Maybe your sentence number two is the actual statistic formatted properly and cited properly, maybe including quotation marks if it's a direct quote. If it's just summarized, you don't need to use quotation marks, but every single one of them is going to need an in-text or a parenthetical citation because that is from an outside source and you need to cite that. Then you will insert your comparison contrast, point of reference, or the percentage version. Both are unnecessary and that would make it too lengthy, so pick your favorite. Then finally, you want to analyze your statistic. What does this mean to people? Is it good? Is it bad? What's the impact? And then your prediction. And so you've actually written 5 sentences, all based right around a statistic. So that is the ideal way to create a statistic and incorporate it into your writing. Remember, these are some great sources for statistics. You can do this. You will love it. I think that you're really going to enjoy how this enhances your paper. Good luck.